not a more remarkable time in this country for patriots to stand up and fight than right now, when we are being turned into a Marxist, communist, socialist country right in front of our faces.
It is an amazing thing to have that be controversial. But people like Kэndis Ouэнs is controversial. She's the author of Blackout, How Black American Can Make Its Second Escape from the Democratic Plantation. She is also the founder of Blexit and the founder now of FactCheckZuck.com. Kandis, you are blazing a trail right now going after these so-called fact checkers. Can you tell us the story of what's happened to you here recently that was the last straw?
Absolutely. So I had posted a video a few months back where I was discussing all of the things. I had Lead Stories, by the way, is the company that I'm talking about, who is an official Facebook fact checker. I had written something that was basically true. I had shared an article that was written by a former NHS pathologist, and he was explaining in his article, which was written for The Spectator UK, his name is Dr. John Lee, that the way that they are actually calculating COVID-19 deaths, meaning that they were doing post-mortem testing for COVID-19, which had never been done. It was never a requirement that needed to be met for any other infectious disease. And he was saying, essentially, this is why these death numbers actually don't make sense, because they've inserted a new requirement that never needed to be done before. If you swabbed every single person for, the flu after they died, even if they didn't die from the flu and they died from a heart attack, the flu numbers would be higher. If you swabbed them for a basic common cold every time somebody died, the numbers would be higher. So I shared this article by him, and it got fact-checked by leadstories.com, which is at the center, by the way, of the fact-checking for the recent videos that have come out of Georgia. And they censored it, and they basically said to me, this is incorrect, and here is the reason why. And the article that they wrote to go along with the censorship was essentially, we found a doctor that disagrees. They had a doctor in Colorado who disagreed with Dr. John Lee, which happens because doctors disagree. I'm 9 months pregnant right now. I can go to a doctor that thinks that I should vaccinate my child with everything, and I can go to a doctor that thinks that you should wait until they're 2 months, because doctors have different opinions. But that's no longer allowed anymore. So I wrote to them and I asked them to reconsider this. I went through the proper means and said, look, this makes no sense. I used a doctor's article. Please remove this censorship from my profile. And they basically were like, there's nothing you can do about it. So I researched leadstories.com, and here's what's incredible, Glenn. Leadstories.com, LLC, was started in 2016. A former editor of CNN, he'd worked for CNN for 26 years, decided to leave CNN and start a fact-checking company. And lo and behold, what luck he had. In the first year of his business, he receives a contract with Facebook. Right? So
it's a great story. It's a great lullaby, especially for the communists in China with the connections to ByteDance, which is a Chinese company that runs TikTok. They're also a major financier of Lead Stories. So now we have the Chinese telling us what we can and can't say here in America. What could possibly go wrong?
What could possibly go wrong? So I immediately lawyered up, and I said, I want to go after these fact checkers, because we know this isn't about fact checking. This is about censoring different ideas. What we're seeing right now that's arrived in America is mass censorship, the same type of censorship that they employ in China, except they don't pretend that it's fact checking. They just say we're a totalitarian government, and you're going to do as we say. And so we are very serious in going after them. We filed in Delaware, and I'm really interested just for the period of discovery.
You have, so am I. You have Nick Sandman's attorney. And Kandis, I said this on the air when that story first broke with you, that we all need to gather together, and we need to figure out a way that this can be done by more people than just you, because the average person is being censored. The idea of Facebook was, hey, let's bring everybody together and they can talk and share ideas. Well, they don't like the ideas. And so now they're just shutting anybody down that they don't like. This has to stop. What do people do that don't have access to attorneys like that?
Well, you know what? It's actually a very good question. I'm glad that you brought it up because here's what's actually scary. After we filed our lawsuit, Facebook then decided to change their terms of service effective on December 20th, which makes it impossible. A part of saying that you're going to use Facebook or you're going to use Instagram, you have to go into a contract with them, which stipulates now that you will not join a class action lawsuit. And they did this, no doubt, because I launched my lawsuit against them. So yeah, I just found this out and I went, oh my gosh, because now they're realizing they could get into some serious trouble. And you're correct. I had a woman write me when she was, she was happy to give to our lawsuit. And she said, I wrote that my husband didn't die of COVID-19 and it got censored from her page, right? Because he was part of postmortem testing. He died of a heart attack and they counted his death as one toward COVID-19. She spoke up against that on her Facebook and she got censored. Could you imagine being censored about talking about your own husband's death of 20 years? That's what's happening on Facebook because they've decided on a preferred narrative. And this is scary stuff because I would say, of course, we should start a class action lawsuit. That train is leaving the station. So instead we have
as long as you haven't gotten out by December 20th, I mean, we should all seriously talk. It may be worth getting out of Facebook.
Right, and that's exactly right. I agree with you. I really do think because if you file before December 20th, there's nothing they can do about it, and there does need to be a class action lawsuit against them. But the silver lining in that is that it doesn't mean that you can't sue them as an individual, and there are tons of lawyers that will take a class action lawsuit without being paid. I actually have on my team, on my legal team, a guy named John P. Cole. He is actually the lawyer that settled the largest class action lawsuit that's ever been settled in the history of the world. And it was against big tobacco. And so once we finish our suit, I have said that I want to help lead a class action lawsuit for everybody who doesn't have the same platform and the same resources as me, because what we're seeing right now happening towards Americans, basic Americans, is truly upsetting.